You're listening to the Like and Follow podcast presented by Milk by Digital.
Welcome to Like and Follow, podcast exploring social media and digital marketing presented by Milk by Digital. I'm Ben, and this episode we'll be talking all about community management and what it means for a brand and how to use it effectively. To do that, I'm joined this episode by Ant. Thank you for joining me, Ant.
You're very welcome.
So bit of background here is we've both had quite a bit of experience in face-to-face customer service. Do you see that customer service has now moved to that online space?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's been a huge shift. People, I find now, are going straight to, if you have an issue or a question or any kind of customer service related kind of conversation, people just go straight to Facebook and they message their business directly, and with that they expect a reply straight away as well, I think. And whereas I guess back in the day you would find time and go back into store or back into the business or give them a ring, now the convenience of being able just to message them straight away on Facebook, I feel, is definitely what people, and I myself do it as well. I just go straight to Facebook because you want that kind of reply and you want that interaction straight away from the convenience of your own home or wherever you are. So yeah, I definitely feel like there's been a huge shift, and I feel like businesses are still kind of trying to keep up with that, I think.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people that are doing it well and have kind of jumped on it, and a lot of people that are still trying to find a place within the business to be able to respond to that different kind of customer service and communication.
Do you feel like there's been a bit of a switch in the behaviour that customers are sort of using in terms of the online feedback versus an in-person?
Yeah, I think we kind of went from we've kind of shifted from when the internet first came around and people businesses were using it, people would go on to find information and they were kind of happy with automated response or just getting information quick and fast. And I think now there's been this kind of change in behaviour where people are also not just happy with that anymore. People want that kind of personal touch. They want to speak to a real person, even though it's not face to face. They still want that kind of the same human interaction and feelings as you would in person, but they want that in the online space, I think. And that's another thing that's I kind of feel that's changed recently, is that there is that expectation that even though I'm messaging a business online, you want a real person, not a bot or automated response.
Okay. Do you feel like a lot of brands are starting to wake up to that idea of the personalization of the brand?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like businesses are definitely beginning to realize that people aren't happy with that bot response, and there's sometimes that not having that human response can also aggravate situations, and people are still looking for that great customer service, whether it be in person or online. I feel like that's where businesses are having to start to catch up, is that they're now having to think about delivering that amazing customer service not only in person but also in the online space.
What do you think makes a good bit of community management? What makes something great for a customer experience?
I feel like that personal touch. I feel sympathising with a situation, kind of the same as you'd expect in person, I think, and having that kind of human emotion and touch. I feel it's the kind of those textbook really cold factual responses just aren't cutting it anymore. I feel like people don't respond well to that, and they need that kind of personalised touch on the situation, because although a lot of situations are very similar, they can vary, and just simple things like greeting them by their name and kind of reacting appropriately to what they've said, because not all standard responses aren't always applicable in every situation. I think as much as you can try,
What would you say is some of your most important things that a brand can use for effective community management? Would you suggest maybe coming up with a working document that you can keep updating with responses and then tailoring them to a certain situation?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely, I think you still need to have consistent responses and standard responses so that the message is always on brand and consistent. I feel like you still need that, but I feel like having that as a base is ideal, so that I guess whoever's doing that community management, whoever's communicating with the customer, that the message is the same. I feel like it's okay that the message is the same, but just making sure that it's personalised and it's tailored to that situation and to that person can make a huge difference.
So we know what sort of feels good to a customer in terms of a good sort of a situation. Yeah. How do we then deal with something that might go into a bit of a crisis mode? Because, like, to be fair, it's probably going to happen sometime or another. There's going to be something that might snowball. How do you suggest would be the best way to handle that in the early stages to try and minimize some of that?
Yeah, I feel like having a kind of plan in place prior is always good. So, you know, as you said, these things like inevitably can pop up out of the blue, and I think kind of being prepared like in advance is definitely a thing all business should like have in place, so that, you know, sometimes the person doing the community management or like the first person they'll interact with may not be aware of the situation for one, so, or even be in the position to make statements or like things, especially with the like bigger businesses and stuff. So having that kind of plan in place that, you know, if something does come through which is like a red flag, that you have I guess a set response that you would then say, you know, I don't know, whether it be like a holding response, I guess, so that you are addressing the situation but you're kind of waiting on that feedback. I think the worst thing you can do in that situation is either there's like two ways, like you either don't respond, which I think aggravates the situation, and I guess the other extreme can be giving the wrong response.
Right.
And I feel like you do see that, like some of the things that have happened in the past where businesses have gone wrong is where they either haven't responded quick enough or they have responded too quickly. So I feel like having like a process in place where there is kind of like a holding kind of response while the business decides on their stance on the issue, and then after that holding response, I guess, then follow up with the required actions and responses. And I feel like, you know, also learning from every situation, because every crisis can be different. And I think having that, you know, sometimes things do go wrong and sometimes things aren't handled in the best way, but I feel like having that kind of evaluating what happened and kind of learning from that and then being better the next time is also a good process in place to have in place, to that kind of like, once it does die down and once the situation is resolved, to kind of have that kind of, okay, let's look what we did, let's look what we can do better, and then to ensure that the next time it comes around that we're better prepared and, you know, avoid the problems that arose the first time.
So in terms of things that you can look out for as a business with customer behaviour, are there any sort of warning signs that might pop up that kind of give you that little bit of an edge in a situation?
Obviously, like with it being such a huge space, like community management, especially online, kind of like noticing certain behaviours in terms of like certain comments or certain conversations that are going on. So being aware of those and kind of, I guess, really flagging them as early as you can. Sometimes like one comment which you can think, you know, oh, that's like nothing, that's one person, can then snowball. So even like, I feel like having that clear communication to the rest of the business and just highlighting little things that are coming through. I mean, sometimes like, you know, 9 times out of 10 there'll be nothing, but having that kind of like initial like
just as a heads up, here's something.
Yeah, I feel like having that, like just being aware and just keeping your eye on things like that, or, you know, kind of preempting possible situations that may arise from small things, because every like 24/7 people can go on at any time. So I feel like, you know, you can, depending on when you're looking and when you're kind of, I guess, doing your community management, things like that, you know, things can happen overnight when you're not aware. So kind of something that may be like a very small or single comment, like in, I don't know, like 5 o'clock, you go the next morning, can be something twice as big. So I feel like, yeah, kind of identifying as soon as possible and just being prepared, and yeah, is definitely a good idea.
Do you think they're almost, and this is complete hypothetical, do you think there might need to be a more clear communication process or education process in terms of how, from a customer experience, these sort of issues are handled? Or do you feel like as as a business in the space that is 24/7, it's just going to be one of the things that we have to work with?
I feel like, again, like I feel like the customer expectation is ever changing. So like I mentioned earlier that, you know, now there's that expectation that even though you're speaking to someone online, you still want that kind of human interaction. I feel like we are unfortunately getting in the way where that people are expecting responses 24/7, which I don't like how realistic that is. And whether that is something that bigger business may have to look into. I mean, even like weekends nowadays, sometimes you'll message businesses and there will be an automated response for the weekend and you won't get a reply till Monday. And I think businesses are kind of thinking, well, you know, do we need to have that community management and conversation going out of hours and on weekends? So I feel like at the moment, people tend to understand that there are certain hours where you will not get a response. But I do feel that, unfortunately, as a consumer, we're expecting, just like with shopping centres, we want them to be open longer and like 24-hour trading and things like that. I feel like to coincide with these extended trading hours and things like that, you know, maybe that, you know, community management and things like that will have to be managed, not necessarily 24/7, but definitely like longer hours than I guess we currently expect. So.
If we move away from some of the bad stuff that's sort of happening, we've dealt with the crisis. There's no more crisis.
Crisis over.
How can we use community management in a more positive way to build that brand recognition and that positivity?
I feel like it's a great way to kind of really make your brand stand out, like the way you deal with those situations and your tone of voice. So kind of building on that kind of human interaction, like having a character to your brand and a certain kind of tone that you're using is a really good way to like communicate with your customer. So obviously it will vary, and like you see some brand like businesses that do it really well, that, you know, their whole business and business tone, I guess, is light and punny and a bit more humorous, and they kind of transfer that over to the online space and their tone of voice. I think that works really well. And I feel like ultimately you need to really know your customer well and tailor your tone to that. And I feel like you can have a lot of fun with it. And I feel like your customers will definitely engage better if your tone matches your business. So,
right.
I feel like there's lots of opportunities to, I guess, like maintain and grow that relationship with your customer by making sure your tone is appropriate to your business.
Okay. I think that's a really important part of the whole thing, is the idea of the tone of voice being applicable to the business and matching.
It's got to be authentic, I think.
Yeah. People are going to look through a tone of voice that doesn't match what you're trying to sell.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting us grab an insight into what makes great community management.
No, it's been great.
Thanks, Anne. If you guys want a hand with any of your community management, I mean, Milk Bar Digital, we're here to help. You can hit us up at hello@milkbardigital.com.au or follow us on all the socials. It's @milkbardigital. Thanks.